Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and the Commanders tried out 14 players today, and they ended up signing a rapper that does play linebacker. We're going to dive into the fact that, hey, man, this guy actually has a chance to make the final 53-man roster. I know he signed him out of nowhere almost nearly mid-August, but this guy actually has a real chance to make the 53-man roster. And is this a bad side for Jordan Magee? Because right now, we're trying to figure out, Bobby Wagner could only play for so long. Who's going to be next up? Who's going to step up and play alongside Frankie Louvu to at least be one of our top two linebackers? And really, we need a third linebacker that can play right now. Is Jordan Magee's health in question? Is that why this signing's happening, or is it something else? We're going to do a deep dive into the fact that we tried out a bunch of players, the specific position group that had the most of the tryouts out of any other position group. And then, of course, we got to talk about Duke Riley and what he means as far as potentially making his team as the only guy that signed from this group of 14. But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video, watching all the way to the end, leaving likes on the way out, comments, opinions, all of that, man. I love it. And of course, I will be live streaming this upcoming Bengals game on August 18th, so make sure you pull up. I will be breaking that down, and this time it should be a lot of the starters playing, so it's going to be a far more fun game, far more competitive, and we'll see how this will give us a better glimpse as to what we look like going into the actual 2025 regular season. Also, beyond August 18th, August 24th, the day after the Ravens preseason game, make sure you pull up to the Commanders Kings live show in person. I'll be pulling up. This is going to be my first time meeting Ed Oliver, Louis T, and Real Robinson in person ever. So that's going to be a really special show. We're going to do a preview of the season. We're going to do record predictions. We're going to review the preseason game that happened the night before. We're going to do roster predictions, depth chart, all of that type of stuff, man. So make sure y'all pull up for that. It's going to be special to say that you were there at the very first one that we do, because we're going to do a lot more later in the future as well. But let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, we had a bunch of tryouts, and when the information was coming out, it was kind of coming out in pieces, like even just going in chronological order. First, I saw John Com say that Washington is working out 7 players right now, and that was after practice ended. So they held their normal practice with the normal 91 guys that they typically have at practice. They didn't want to interrupt that at all. They didn't want to waste any precious practice time on just bringing in tryout players. So then they tried out the players after practice. And again, when John Com noticed it, he said 7. Same thing with Ben Standig. He said 7 guys here, it appears. Could be others, though. So it was like not a definitive 7 put out there, but they could confirm it was 7. He said it was offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and cornerbacks as far as positions that he was aware of. And he already knew that defensive end Amari Barno, who we're going to talk about for a brief moment a little later, and cornerback Isang Basie, they were expected to attend per sources. So those were like 2 of the notable guys that have, made enough noise elsewhere throughout their careers, whether in the NFL and college. So it's like, oh, okay, the Commanders are trying out these guys. These are some of the notable names here. And then there was also even like a separate update that we were bringing in and working out defensive end Jeremiah Martin from Aaron Wilson. So literally just going in chronological order of how all the information was coming out. And then Mike Garafolo later on, around 4-ish p.m., said the Commanders worked out a group of 14 players today, including veteran linebackers Nicholas Morrow, Tanner Muse, Duke Riley, Sion Takitaki, and O'Shane Zimenez. And I remember O'Shane Zimenez, man. Y'all know that was one of the guys that I was really rooting for us to end up drafting a few years ago. So I was really excited to hear about him because he has a lot of potential. He was just coming from a lower level school or something. I don't remember if it was D2 or it was a weak conference. I just remember he didn't go up against a lot of high caliber competition, but he had a lot of talent to him. Well, he's kind of, I guess, been bouncing around the NFL since he's been drafted, and I was rooting for him to be one of the guys to make the team because he has a crazy high ceiling. And of course, nobody's surprised that we brought in a whole group of 14 tryout players after the way we looked on Friday. I actually would have been shocked if we didn't come and bring in tryout players, especially at positions like linebacker, defensive end, defensive back, and offensive line, with the fact that we now have an injury to Lucas Niang, who apparently tore his ACL in that preseason game. So I'm not the least bit surprised by the fact that we brought in a bunch of different players at those positions specifically. I mean, I would kind of look at wide receiver a little crazy, even beyond Terry McLaurin not showing up yet. Even if Terry McLaurin were here, happy, long-term deal, signed, all of that extension out the way, I would still be questioning the back-end depth of our wide receiver group right now. Because like I've already said, man, we have 5 locks. Terry, Debo, Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane. That's it. That 6th spot is a big competition between Chris Moore, who I think after that first preseason game, you're cooked. KJ Osborne was fairly inconsistent in that preseason game. Then you have Michael Gallup, also fairly inconsistent in that preseason game. But then you have the guys on the back end, Tay Martin coming from the DC Defenders. He caught every pass thrown his way. Same thing with Ja'Cory Brooks, who's had an inconsistent training camp, but he had arguably the best game of any wide receiver we threw out there in that preseason game. And there's a few more names in the mix as well. And so all of these guys are competing for that last one final 6th available spot in the wide receiver room. But that's still not enough for me. With as inconsistent as some of those guys looked in that game, especially the older veteran guys, like I was a little surprised to see that the younger, untapped potential guys were the ones that were being the most consistent. Typically, it's the veterans that are supposed to be consistent, and then the younger, more talented guys are supposed to give you bigger flashes. It was slightly the opposite in a way. So that was kind of weird, and it definitely makes me a little anxious about like what's going on with this back end wide receiver room, especially with the whole Terry situation. But even if he were here, I am a little worried about that back end wide receiver group. But just to break it down, the entire group includes linebackers Nicholas Morrow, Tanner Muse, Ronnie Perkins, Duke Riley, Sion Takitaki, and O'Shane Zimenez. Then defensive end wise, you have Amari Barno and Jeremiah Martin. Then defensive back-wise, you have Isang Basie, Antonio Hamilton, and Ken H. Lovely. And I'm trying to remember why I remember Isang Basie so well. There's something at the tip of my brain. Like, I believe at one point in time, I really wanted the Commanders to look at him. And then offensive line, we have Lester Cotton, John Leglu, and Tashawn Manning. I hope I didn't butcher any of those names. The Seawall Sports brings up a good point. So, remember Friday night after the Commanders game, I asked Coach Dan Quinn about the linebacker performance? Here's my answer. 7 linebackers worked out today after practice. Currently, Jordan Magee is injured. Shouldn't be long-term, but this is still a lot of linebackers to come in and practice. Also, note 3 of each at defensive back and offensive line, and then, of course, technically 2 edge rushers as well. And so even shouts out to Ben Standig. He pointed out the fact that 8 of the 14 players that tried out were linebackers or edge rushers. So that's really interesting. Washington also invited multiple offensive linemen and defensive backs to try out because, again, offensive tackle Lucas Niang, who I thought had a good chance of making the 53-man roster because I've already told y'all in several videos and even my live stream breaking down, we live reacted and watched the Patriots game together. And I said in that live stream as well, along with some other videos, that he's a talented tackle. He has started games for the Kansas City Chiefs, like during the Pat Mahomes era. And it's just been injuries, man. It's been injuries holding them back and keeping them off of the field. And then we sign him, and immediately after we sign him, he's already making noise in like the first training camp practice that he participated in like a day or 2 later. And then now he has a torn ACL against New England, which just seems to sum up exactly where his career has gone so far. Very talented, plays well when available, but just constantly hurt. So that sucks, and that's why you bring in more offensive linemen to look at, because Nate Herbig retired, which led to us having an offensive line spot open for Lucas Niang to come in. Now that he's hurt, possibly for the entire year, now we have another offensive line spot opening up. So I wouldn't be surprised that we also signed somebody from that group of 3 offensive linemen that worked out, unless they just didn't like any of them so much that they're not even going to sign one of them. Maybe they'll hold another tryout, take a look at somebody else. I don't know. And then also, of course, all of the defensive backs that they brought in play corner, which is interesting because, we don't have a lot of safety depth, but of course, even the cornerback position-wise, Kayvon Seymour hobbled off the field at some point against the Patriots, like favoring his right leg. And then you had like Bobby Price, who went into concussion protocol after he almost had that interception that went to him, and then he kind of fell back and hit his head on the ground, on the turf, and then that's how the ball ended up coming out of his hands, because he probably was knocked out at the time that he was trying to complete the catch all of the way. So that's, those are 2 backup corners right there. And then also, of course, Carlin Vickers didn't look very good in that second half. First half, he actually looked pretty decent. Like, if you actually go back and look, he actually had a pretty decent first half, which is crazy, because the first half was like second stringers and third stringers. For some reason, in the second second half, against the third and fourth stringers, the worst competition, he actually looked a little worse. So it was weird. He started to really get picked on when it was like the backups of the backups. I don't know what that was. But either way, going back to Ben Standig, he said these tryouts may just be about bodies to get through the summer with 2 preseason games remaining. Though Niang, Seymour, and Price all had a puncher's chance to actually stick onto the roster, make the final 53. I agree. The edge rushers logically correlate to second-year defensive end Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who's been hurt. He's been sidelined for the last several days with an undisclosed injury. Dan Quinn has downplayed every single injury that's happened. Outside of Lucas Niang, where he just came out and straight up said, yeah, he has a torn ACL. Every other injury, he's like, it's not that bad. You know, all of those guys that never even traveled to New England. Remember, we had 7 people that didn't even go to New England at all, so they weren't available for the joint practice nor the preseason game. You had guys like Jordan Magee, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. You have Marcus Mariota with an apparent lower leg injury of some sort. They're ramping up Noah Brown. Of course, Samuel Cosme and Terry McLaurin are technically on the PUP list. All of that type of stuff. He's downplaying all of them. But then at the same time, we're holding tryouts to potentially replace these guys, so I thought that was interesting. This exercise at linebacker feels like due diligence and more like a hard target search for a backup capable of filling in on the fly, just in case if a guy like Jordan Magee at linebacker or Javonte Jean-Baptiste at defensive end are not able to go. With starting inside linebacker Bobby Wagner among 30 veterans ruled out against the Patriots, Washington turned to a handful of kids at the defensive second level. 6th-round pick Kane Medrano appeared to have misread a couple of running lanes or 2 against the Patriots, but otherwise, he had flashes. You saw his speed, you saw his relentless pursuit of the ball carrier. He was attacking some of the blocks. Now, granted, I don't know if this is defensive line's fault. I don't know if it was schematically our fault on our end, like Joey Jr. or whatever, but there were a lot of times that like offensive linemen were getting up to the second level to block them. And, you know, as first of all, as a rookie, and even as a veteran, a linebacker versus a big guard, the guard is bigger than you, it's really hard to beat those blocks. You kind of expect and you hope that your linebackers can do that, but then again, it's really hard for not only a rookie, but a guy that's already technically, you know, considered undersized to be an off-ball linebacker. He's sitting up there going against offensive linemen a lot of that preseason game. So I'm not surprised that there were, you know, some on and off moments for him, but the times that he engaged with people, he was not afraid of contact. And we can buy into that. You know, we can work on strengthening it up. We can work on block shedding ability. But at the very least, everything mental was there. The want to, the will, the determination, like everything. He was not afraid of contact, and I respect that. But then you had Dominique Hampton, who was a 5th round pick from last year, 2024. So he's a year before Kane Medrano, and Kane Medrano so far has had the better training camp. He even had the better preseason game. Dominique Hampton did not look good out there, man. I mean, this is a guy that's transitioning from safety to all-ball linebacker, but it really didn't look good. Technically was like red-shirted last year's rookie season, barely played, and then he was flagged for like a 15-yard face mask penalty against New England. He was getting pushed around everywhere. It just wasn't good, man. And then you have undrafted free agent Ale Cajo. I believe he went to UCLA as well, along with Kane Medrano. I mean, he's a potential special teams guy, and he's been looking pretty decent, like with the backups of the backups of the backups, but none of these guys are ready to step up to play on Sundays after, you know, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, or anytime they need to sit down on the sideline to have some rest, to regain their stamina or anything like that. We don't have guys like that outside of really Jordan Magee, and right now we're questioning his health. I mean, we'll see about Kane Medrano, but he's a 6th round rookie. We don't want to put too much on his plate immediately. We don't want to have to depend on him to help us go win a Super Bowl this year, especially not earlier in the season. Maybe at some point later in the season, mid-season, he figures it out, something clicks, and he gets it going. But I don't want to go into week 1 expecting Kane Medrano to be linebacker 3. That's not good at all. So then, some of the notable tryout guys that I noticed immediately, again, before we even get to the guy that we actually ended up signing, some of the other notable guys that, hey, maybe if we don't sign them today, maybe we keep in contact with them, we sign them tomorrow, I don't know. But you have Amari Barno, whose relative athletic score you see right here, and you can consider him an athletic freak. Now, he's a little small for edge rusher. He's kind of more so like an outside linebacker, I guess. And then he didn't have a really good bench press either, and he's underweight. He has a good height to him, but he's just underweight. But elite explosion, elite speed, and he only did the shuttle, which was all right for testing wise, but otherwise, you know, overall, he is a freak athlete. This is somebody that, hey man, maybe there's some potential here. And then also, shouts out to Pedro Smith for pointing out the fact that he'll take a flyer on Tanner Muse as a special team stud, because he has 4.4 speed and was a 3rd round pick in 2020, so he's not far removed from you know, certain NFL teams looking at him like this is a very talented guy that could potentially turn into a starter at the NFL level. It hasn't worked out yet, but that's a guy to keep an eye on as well, maybe later on down the line. But then we finally signed somebody. The Commanders signed former Dolphins linebacker Duke Riley per his agents, Drew Rosenhaus and Robert Bailey. Hey, man, Duke, hey, talk to Terry. One-on-one, behind the scenes, nobody else around. Hey, slide him Drew Rosenhaus's number. You know what I'm saying? I really think this agent that he got, this hometown agent that's from the same city as him, as Indianapolis, you know, back in Indiana, I don't know if he's doing him right. That Buddy Baker guy may not necessarily be, you know, doing right by him. I don't know. Duke Riley, hey, anybody with an agent, hey, forget it, Terry. Let Bobby Wagner represent you. But we getting off track. Out of the way, Duke Riley is 31 years old. I mean, not crazy old, but also not super young where it's like, okay, maybe there's just this super untapped potential that we haven't reached like this. He's kind of who he already is. We're bringing him in with a certain floor. I'm not expecting a lot of ceiling, but that's what you kind of need when you have a bunch of ceiling on the back end. After Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, it's basically a bunch of ceiling. Jordan Magee, crazy ceiling, but the problem is health. Kane Medrano, crazy talent, crazy ceiling, unproven. You know, and then we just have all of the other guys that we've already described. Again, all ceiling, no floor. Now we finally bring in, and we ended up signing out of all of those tryout guys, a guy with the floor that you know at the very least can do a little something. He spent the last 4 seasons with the Dolphins after 2 years with the Eagles and the Falcons. And just mind you, Dan Quinn was in Atlanta when they drafted Wiley. He was drafted by the Falcons. He was a 3rd-round pick back in 2017. He was in the 3rd year of his 4-year contract when Atlanta traded him to the Eagles in exchange for safety Jonathan Cyprian back in 2019. And of course, he made like a good amount of money. And so then he hit the free agent market. He ended up signing with the Dolphins as an unrestricted free agent in 2021. And then the Dolphins opted to bring Riley back on another 1-year deal in 2022. And then in 2023, they signed him to a 2-year contract. So whatever he did in 2021, they were like, okay, we'll give you another year. And then after 2022, they were like, we'll give you 2 more years. So he looked really good for him. And in 2024, he appeared in 17 games for the Dolphins, made 2 starts, and he recorded only 11 total tackles. But this is a guy that doesn't miss games. He hasn't missed a game since 2020, y'all. So when we're talking about floor, this is the ultimate floor guy. Dan Quinn, Joe Wood Jr., Ken Norton Jr. as your linebackers coach, they've been taking in a lot of talent and a lot of potential, a lot of ceiling, and now they're probably sick of the fact that they have all of this ceiling but not much floor. Outside of Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, there's no floor in the linebacker group. After those two, it's a bunch of really talented question marks. And so they were like, man, give me at least a little bit of floor. Give me some type of floor. And Duke Riley fits that perfectly. And then Duke Riley is a really interesting guy because he has a music career. He is a rapper. And not only is he a rapper, he's signed to Lil Wayne's Young Money Entertainment record label. Like, this is not just some random rapper that just started rapping out of nowhere type of football player. He's signed to Young Money. Now, granted, he is from Louisiana. Maybe that's his connection to Lil Wayne or something like that. But he's signed to Young Money. And John Comm also pointed out the fact that the Commanders just worked out a group of guys today. Backup linebackers didn't stand out, and Magee has missed time. Don't think it's anything serious with Magee, but he's not back yet. So this Duke Riley signing probably is because of the Jordan Magee injury. I'm hoping not, man. I mean, I'm definitely wondering, like, what does this indicate about Jordan Magee's health moving forward? Like, is he hurt worse than Dan Quinn is leading on to or whatever? But again, like I already said, I feel like this is more so, even if Jordan Magee's healthy, he's still relatively unproven. He hasn't given us a full season. Last year, his rookie season, he was on and off, and even when he did play, he flashed. He looked really good, but he wasn't a guy that you could depend on to play 17 games for you. We may need a guy that can at the very least go out there and play every game as part of a rotation, even if he's not like a starting caliber linebacker. Jordan Magee has starting level potential, really good starting level potential. But we just need somebody that can come in and at least be playable on Sundays for us for the times that Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu need to step off that field for a little while. And just to let you know, like, Riley is off-ball linebacker. That's it. We're not talking about a guy that may potentially go do some Frankie Louvu-like type of stuff where he's rushing off of the edge, or like maybe a hybrid safety linebacker where he's a really good coverage guy and he can play in the box as like an additional DB or something like that, the star position, or what some of y'all consider like a big nickel or a buffalo nickel or whatever. He's purely off-ball linebacker like Frankie Louvu, well, more so Bobby Wagner and Duke Riley type of build, more so than like a Frankie Louvu, who also kind of gives you a little bit of edge rushing to him as well. And then Skylar Nelson brought up good points. She said what Riley's bringing to Washington: tackling, special teams contribution, and rotational depth. Those three things mainly. 124 tackles, 3 passes defense, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 forced fumble in 67 games, which are only 12 of them were starts across 4 seasons in Miami alone. That's not including the Falcons and Eagles days. And that's why the Miami Dolphins just kept re-signing them and things like that, because this guy stays healthy. He hasn't missed a game since he went to the Dolphins, and he's a strong rotational guy that when you play him on Sundays, he's not a liability, but he's also not a guy that you necessarily want being like your starting linebacker, immediately snap one, all of that type of stuff. And he had 11 tackles, 5 solo, and like I said earlier, in 17 games last year. So he didn't contribute much, and maybe that's why the Dolphins felt like he was a little expendable. And hey, man, one man's trash, maybe another man's treasure. And just to let you know, this guy has some athleticism. Now, granted, again, he's already 31 years old. So it's like, how much deeper can we tap into any potential here? What you've been so far in the NFL is more than likely who you'll forever be. And if anything, you only getting older, your play may decline, your athleticism may decline. But at the same time, if you look on the screen right now, this guy is very athletic. He has a good explosion grade, great agility grade, and elite speed grade. Now, of course, the size, the bench wasn't very good, so that's what's holding him back from being like a 9 point something. But like, as far as like his movement skills are 9 point something relative to athletic score level. It's just the fact that he's undersized, so that brings his overall score down. But this is a guy that could potentially help you with coverage duties. Like Frankie Louvu, elite run stopper, elite at getting after the quarterback, especially as an off-ball linebacker coming in between the gaps. We'll see if he can develop into a guy that can come off the edge as well this season, because it sounds like they have plans for him to do that. Bobby Wagner, elite run stopper, quarterback of the defense. But neither of those two guys do you want doing a bunch of covering in a game. Duke Riley could be the guy that they send to cover, tight ends occasionally, running backs out of the backfield occasionally. Whenever they want Frankie Louvu focusing on what he does best and want Bobby Wagner to focus on what he does best, Duke Riley can handle the things that they're not so great at, which is coverage. Bobby Wagner used to be an elite cover linebacker. He's just old, and he just can't move the way that he used to. But when it comes to like IQ and awareness and stopping the run and getting everybody together, still elite at that. So just let him do that. Duke Riley, you cover. Bobby Wagner, you just do what you do. Same thing, Frankie Louvu. That guy's worrying about covering over there. You do what you do. And so shouts out to Josh Taylor. He brings up a good point that could this be the writing on the wall? This immediately raises 2 flags for me. Who would he replace on special teams? And what does this mean for the health for another linebacker? When you go back and watch the film, Dominique Hampton did not look good at all in his new linebacker position. And again, this is him going into his 2nd season trying to do it. And I also don't have him make an active roster. The team also drafted Kane Madrano, who is listed as a linebacker in the depth chart by the team. But other than that, the Commanders have no true depth at linebacker. You have a special teams ace who can't play linebacker in Nick Bellore, and a linebacker who can't play special teams. So that's an interesting point right there. We have some linebackers that can play some linebacker, can't play special teams. We have some guys that can play some special teams, can't play linebacker. That's what's cool about Duke Riley. He can kind of do a little bit of both. He can be a nice rotational backup linebacker for you in games, and then he also can go out there and do some special team stuff, because you don't necessarily want Jordan Magee going out there and playing special teams. Even as much as I love his potential as an off-ball linebacker, he's not really a special teams type of guy. First of all, that puts him, it makes him more susceptible to getting hurt even more often, putting his body on the line for something like special teams instead of actual on-the-field linebackering. And then going back to Josh Taylor, he said veteran Nick Bellore has been an outstanding special teams player, and I want to add to that he has been a Pro Bowler at it. But his lack of ability at linebacker could cost the 36-year-old potentially as far as making the roster. Hopefully, second-round linebacker Jordan Magee, the second-year linebacker, not second round, has so much potential, but he's already dealing with an undisclosed injury after only playing 16 snaps in his rookie season due to injuries. Like, I mean, he was there at times, but and he flashed when he was just barely out there. Signing Riley, who can rotate as a linebacker and be a key special teams piece, means that the team either doesn't like what they saw on film with special teams, or they aren't sure if Magee can stay healthy. Either way, this signing is potentially filling 2 major needs right now. Again, both special teams, if they have a problem with that, because special teams was atrocious against the Patriots. I don't know exactly why, though. We were one of the best special teams units last year in the entire NFL, and I feel like, if anything, we've only added talent. We upgraded kicker, I would assume. I feel like we added more talent as far as special teams coverage. We got way better at punt returner, going from everybody that we threw out there last year to Jalen Lane now. And somehow, after adding talent to the special teams unit, we went from one of the best last year to looking like one of the worst against the Patriots. And maybe, they're like, oh, no. We need to add some special teams help. And then also, of course, there's the other side of it where we need a guy that can be a floor, bring some floor to the linebacker room, be a dependable depth piece that he never misses games and he's not a liability when he's on the field. And also with his athleticism, he can also help cover a little bit. And so Riley was a starting linebacker in Atlanta when he was drafted in 2017, and he eventually landed in Miami in 2021, where he was a rotational player and more of a special teams guy, which literally sounds like exactly what we're looking for. And I wouldn't be surprised if he plays significant minutes in this preseason game against the Bengals to see if the guy that they signed truly is who we actually want them, who they want him to be. And so now I'm thinking, like, is this signing actually a guy that has a real chance to make this roster? I would probably say so. But again, at the end of the day, we have a lot of training camp left. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions just yet. I'm just brainstorming out loud, throwing out a lot of ideas. But as of right now, Jordan Magee, if healthy, but a big if, is our leading Bobby Wagner successor plan for the future after this season. But this Duke Riley guy seems like temporary insurance. But again, we have a lot of training camp between now and the start of the regular season, so we'll see. But those are just my thoughts as of right now. Today, just a couple of hours after we signed Duke Riley, August 10th, 2025. We'll see. Again, we have a lot of training camp left. Things could change. I mean, best case scenario, Jordan Magee stays healthy, and then now we have like a group of 5 linebackers. You have one in a special teams ace in Nick Bellore. You have Duke Riley, who can play both on the field and in special teams, so he's kind of like your chess piece there as far as like when you're trying to figure out how you want to do this roster construction because you're limited to only 53. He's a guy that kind of is 2 people in one. And then Jordan Magee, Frankie Louvu, and Bobby Wagner. Again, Jordan Magee, if healthy, best case scenario. That's a really good 3-man linebacker rotation right there. They can all be on the field at the same time as well. So Duke Riley sounds like a guy we should have been signed, honestly. I mean, even if Jordan Magee stays healthy, best case scenario, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a guy that can play both special teams and come in and rotate on defense. Because again, like we said earlier, Nick Bellore can't play linebacker at all. He's a special teams ace, but there's no linebacker play on Sundays for him at all. If we get to the point that Nick Bellore has to go out there and play linebacker for us at that point, we might as well take in auditions from the stands. And then Jordan Magee, love him as a linebacker, can't play special teams. So Duke Riley, again, is 2 people in one, and I'm surprised it took this long to sign him, to be honest. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stick on that like button, stick on the subscription button, and stick on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Make sure you leave a like on the way out, but let me know how you feel about this Duke Riley signing. Let me know out of all of the 14 tryout players if there's anybody that stood out to you as far as like freak athletes or anybody that may have some potential that like maybe we'll call them later, sign them later, and maybe they can end up having a chance of making a 53-man roster. So let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.